If it's too bright, you can blink and block out the light. The dark waits to take its place. In the shade, all eyes are lidless. We, the hunters, blocked it out for too long. We saw the things hidden there, confined to arteries, living in the pulse. There's ash. It blows like leaves in a storm. They can't be caught, counted, measured, or grasped, but we all see it. I hoped it was a collective madness, that the color was drained out the world because we bled our humanity out of us, but seeing the first was unforgettable. The distant glimmer, an object of malignant desire, after that, impossible to ignore. We argued, but its existence became undeniable. Its baleful pull inescapable. Shutting eyes only made it clearer. I pursued it. I found it. My first. The source of the ash. Its cinders erupt and flare into our world. They fall in theirs, cold and blackened. They say it's a rend in our world. It burns where we would bleed. Scabbed over, a petrified memory of barbarity, a pile of dust. What I remember most? The smell. Still lingering, burnt flesh and sulfur. Seeped into the earth, seeped into me. Then, the pain. I reached into the wound, tore it open. It engulfed me in billows of fiery heat. I was made to relive the death in its depths. A momentary glimpse. Teeth, punctured skin, jaw, crushed bones, my hand deluged in flesh. I pushed, only to melt into its maw. The world returned. The Faustian revelation, fresh, grinding within my mind. Another anomaly was calling, weak and far. The second was much the same. I came undone in a flash, but I took what I wanted from the fire and the fury. The third was easy. I welcomed the heat as I had grown cold. As it ebbed, I was pulled apart, arm from shoulder, leg from hip, ripped, flesh lacerated, bones ruptured, neck torn and twisted, around and around and around. Time ground to a halt. When it passed, I was somewhere else. My fear and anger became overwhelming. I raised my hand to my face to feel if it was me. Too many elbows bent and fingers curled, nails like claws, some torn out of their bed. My face bloated, convulsing at my touch. The floor was far below. Ovens smoked, a school of strung-up fish hung around. Webs covered all. My flesh began to tighten. The inverse was constriction, compression, shattering. In the maelstrom, only the image seen remained. The beast's lair found. Hello fellow initiates, it's DSDude464 here with another great video for Hunt Showdown. So, as you can probably guess, what I read at the beginning of this video is once again another journal entry from an anonymous hunter on his first hunt. And, of course, I thought it would be fun to analyze this from a lore perspective rather than a gameplay perspective, because honestly I don't think there's much gameplay-wise that we can pull out of this. I mean, there's a little bit, and I will talk about it, but this is mainly a lore bit. So, this journal is more than just their first hunt. It is their first experience with the clues that actually lead them to their bounty. Now, one of the most interesting parts of this entry is it specifically talks about how they had to give up part of their humanity to be able to have a chance in these hunts. That the color was drained out of the world because we bled our humanity out of us is the specific quote I'm speaking of. Now, obviously, we've heard the devs sort of mention it, but we haven't really seen it so blatantly presented. It's just really interesting to see that we have to become more like these monsters, less humans, to be able to hunt them and save the rest of the people. Now, I believe the quotes, "The color was drained out the world because we bled our humanity out of us, and shutting our eyes only made it clearer," refer specifically to the sort of dark vision, I guess you can call it, that we have as hunters in the game that allow us to actually hunt down and find these clues in the world. I believe this dark vision is literally our hunters closing their eyes to peer into the quote invisible world where these clues are more obvious. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I believe there's a whole lot of voodoo lore tied into this game, and one thing that's really big in that culture is the invisible world that is sort of on the same plane as our world, but it's not visible to normal humans. They have to undergo certain things to be able to view into that world, which I believe, once again, is how these hunters are able to find these clues through the invisible world. Now, also, the clues are really interesting, like the clues specifically. We have somewhat of a better understanding of what these clues actually are and how they got there. So it appears that these are actually rens or rifts, I guess you could even say portals, between our world and wherever these demons are coming from, which I believe is to be some kind of, underworld, hell, whatever it is. How they're created is also quite interesting. The quotes, "A petrified memory of barbarity," and "I was made to relive the death in its depths," point to the fact that I believe these terrors were actually created by a murder of some kind. Very similar to the way vengeful ghosts are created in a lot of ghost lore. The human is killed in a very brutal way, and it causes the spirit to become vengeful until it's able to rest. This so-called barbarity somehow creates a rend connecting our world to theirs. Now, the reason I believe this specific murders are what are causing these rends is because it's specifically when the monster we are hunting makes its first few kills, which is why it connects us to our bounty. We relive their kill and are able to figure out where they went next due to this, until eventually we get to the most recent location that has a fresh connection to the beast. It's the most recent kill, it knows exactly, it still has that connection to where they are. There's a couple things that also point to it in that journal entry, talking about how he felt his bones being crushed and the teeth digging into his skin and things like that. I really do believe that this is the monster killing the humans to create these rens. It also appears that accessing these tears in our world affects our humanity as well, somehow causing us to become more like the monsters we are hunting, which very well could be exactly what we need. That, tied in with a couple other things, also leads me to believe that these rens actually allow the other demons and monsters to enter our world and infect and possess the other humans, which could explain why the outbreak is localized in this swamp. The original monster caused these 3 rens to open, allowing the other inhabitants to become diseased and possessed. One thing the devs have talked about, and I really am totally on board with, is the idea that these monsters and these demons are an evolution. They start out, as the zombie. The zombie is infected or possessed, and it then enters its chrysalis, where it becomes an armor, and then it might go one step further into the meathead, or it might go one step further into the hive. There's the different forms that it evolves through, and part of that, I believe, is actually the bounty monsters as well. I believe that these monsters, the bounty monsters, they're not just demons. I believe they are actually demons possessing a human and turned them into that. I already have my video about who I believe the Butcher actually is and how he used to be a human until he was haunted and then possessed by a demon that turned him into the Butcher, which I also believe is with the spider as well. I actually have a video or an image that I'll throw up on the screen right now that is of the spider in the Steam trailer. And if you look closely, the face right there, totally, to me at least, looks like a human face, which I think helps to solidify this idea. So, personally, I believe that this bounty monster was a normal person that was possessed by maybe a higher ranking demon or something of the sort of spirit that then infected him and turned him into either the spider or the butcher, which then purposefully killed other people to open rents into the world to allow other demons and the infection to spread and create these monsters on our side of the world. Why they're doing this, don't know. You know, maybe there's not a reason. Maybe they're like animals and they're just trying to thrive and survive. But I think that this really puts a lot more into the lore that not a lot of people probably thought about at first. You know, it's probably just, oh, this is a cool one, shows what it's like getting into the clues, but there's a lot more to it than that, I believe. Well, that about wraps up this video. I know there was a lot of babbling there at the end, but I'm just kind of throwing out my theories and ideas. That's what I really like to do in these videos. I honestly think this is my favorite entry so far, and as usual, I can't wait to see what else the story team has in store for us. Let me know your thoughts down below. Maybe let me know your theories that you have in the game in general or from this specific journal entry, and maybe something I might have missed that was blatantly obvious in this journal entry that I just didn't see. I would love to hear it. I would love to read it, and I really do try to reply to all of your guys' comments. You know, even if it's just a short thank you, I really do appreciate your guys' support. It's amazing. You guys are a great community. And, you know, thanks so much for watching, you guys. And remember, hunt together or die alone.